Remember these? Disposable cameras. They were a big hit in the 1980s when I was little. Well, speaking of when I was little, I was happy if I had one guitar. But nowadays, seriously, how many guitars is enough? So, manufacturers of guitars have come up with this new concept. Cheapo guitars. You can buy as many as you like. So let's just call them what they really are. Disposable guitars, just like these cameras. Today we're going to review a Harley Benton Progressive Series electric guitar that one of my customers purchased online through Amazon. So, welcome back to Guitar Quackery, where we use scientific equipment, in this case to review a guitar. As you're about to see, in this case, we do actually need to look through the optical system of a microscope to see what's wrong with this guitar. So, that said, let me take you to the Guitar Quackery workshop and let's have a look through a microscope. There's an old Chinese proverb that says, I can't afford to buy a cheap guitar. With that in mind, let's have a look at this Harley Benton Progressive Series guitar. Well, let's have a look at it first this way. So, what I did is a full setup and fret polish. All right. So it has a Floyd Rose type. It says Harley Benton by Floyd Rose. So I don't believe that that's a Floyd Rose. It says by Floyd Rose. Obviously it has a locking nut, and it's a Harley Benton Progressive Series. It looks pretty good if you like these types of guitars. But how does it perform? Well, it had some high frets. I took care of that. But listen to this. Okay, so we hear sitar buzzing on the high E string. The other strings don't do that. So, we do have a microscope. Why don't we have a look at the nut on the E string? As you can see, well, let's zoom out a little bit first. As you can see, that's a gold-plated nut. And what we see here is that when the string vibrates, it vibrates inside of the nut. Look at it. You can see movement inside of the nut, if you can catch this. So now let's zoom in closer. And I want to show you something. What we see here is a little bit of wear and tear from the string. This is a brand new guitar, okay? So if we try to move this string, you can see where the wear and tear happens. Well, that's the contact point of the string. That's also the takeoff point where the string is actually vibrating. So the takeoff point should be right at the front end of the nut, not inside of the string slot. That's clearly one of the reasons why we hear this sitar buzz. But I discovered the same issue here. Let's jack it up a little bit. So the saddle is not much better. Here's your E string. it is moving inside, sliding. I try to kick it towards the side to nest it better, but still there's some sliding. So initially I did put it in the middle. You can see some wear from the string over there. But in order to minimize the sitar buzz, I kicked it towards the side. That did not quite resolve completely the issue, but it improved it. So that's a trick you might want to remember. Okay, so now let's have a look at the back of this guitar. You can see a scarf joint on the neck. Okay, so this is one piece of wood, and that's another one. I don't mind scarf joints. I just don't like them over this area of the neck. I prefer when they are past the nut, maybe in the other direction like a Taylor guitar. The other thing that you notice is the wood grain. You can see these growth rings ending up on the side of the neck. Well, that also happens on more expensive guitars, but you know, it would be a better neck potentially if the growth rings were ending up in the center. So, conclusion. Well, before I tell you of the conclusion, why don't I also tell you about the truss rod? I had to crank it up counterclockwise all the way to correct a back bow. Now, when you have to do that, in my opinion, the neck becomes less stable and more susceptible to changes. So I don't think this will ever be a good neck. It's a cheap guitar. What do you expect? As you could see, sometimes it really helps to have a microscope in order to really see what might be causing certain issues on guitars. And as I'm sure you realize, this was a completely independent review. And that's because this was not a guitar that was sent to me by the manufacturer with a request to make a review and also with a nice sponsorship package deal attached to it. This was just a customer's guitar on my workbench, and I just decided to make a video for you. Oh, I'm sorry. Guitar quackery. Oh, that's a very interesting question. In fact, why don't I answer it on air? Aye. Oh, please don't forget to subscribe. Aye. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Viewer wants to know if any of these cheapo guitars can play well. Well, can any of these cheap cameras take good pictures? I guess it depends who's taking the picture. So I guess it depends who's playing the guitar. Not to mention it depends who does the setup. But I had to do a little bit more than just the setup. I had to do some additional finishing work on the guitar. And that's the type of finishing work that would normally be done at the factory level on higher end guitars, but would also come with an additional price tag, which some people are not willing to pay. So I guess it could be argued that, at least for some people, it does make sense to buy a cheap guitar and have a local tech work on it. I've done quite a lot of these upgrades on the Harley Benton guitars, and I can tell you that they are generally good. But don't forget, there's an old Chinese proverb that says, you get what you pay for. And as we've seen, I had some issues with the neck and the way it's back bowed. I had some issues with the scarf joint being between the second and third fret, and we've seen some issues with the hardware. So you get what you pay for. So you have to make your own decision. So if you enjoyed this program, please give it a thumbs up, share, and subscribe. Subscribe. If you want to support this work financially, there's a link to buy me a coffee. There's a link to support this channel on Patreon. And you can also buy some Guitar Quackery merch. Thank you very much, and I'll see you soon.